Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I am very well. How are you doing?
Great, great. I just am excited again that we get to meet and have a conversation.
Yes.
And technology is such a fun thing. I'm going to rename myself. I'm at my husband's computer today,
Ah,
and because I'm at his computer, I don't want to be his name. I'll be me. I'll be Shana. So
that's a
I just
good thing.
realized
It's a
that.
good start.
Yeah, you can be Sandra. I'll be Shana.
Oh, that's good. That's
Great.
good.
So, when we talked about meeting today, we mentioned that we were going to look into this whole idea of animals. Our conversations have been circling around the shaman, what the shaman does, how the shaman works in this world. We're dealing mostly with core shamanic principles, which means that these are universal and near universal techniques. That sets the stage for us, and we're now at the point where animal powers come into play.
Mm.
So, well, starting off thinking about those, you can jump into the anthropological literature, and you can start.
No, I really want you to
Yeah,
explain it because it's so fascinating and also for me to learn.
sure, sure. And so, as you look the world over, even from, and I'm going to get this date right. I want to say this. Around 30,000 BCE, before Common Era, we have representations on cave walls or sculptures showing animals. You look
Oh,
at certain aspects of these, and you see sometimes there are blendings of human and animal. Now, you've just been
yes.
to Egypt, and you've seen some of the deities
Yes.
there with the head of
Absolutely.
the ibis, when the head of the jackal. So
Yes.
we have this great historical wave of information that comes to us, demonstrating to us how important animals were to our ancestors, those folks way back, and they continue to be important. So, and as I was saying, we've talked about them as power animals. A lot of times that's the language that we hear when people are talking shamanism. Okay, what's your power animal? What's your power animal? But they're also called guardian spirits. You might hear
Okay.
animal helper. You might hear tutelary spirit. You might hear assistant totem, and I'll go back to that in a minute. Some people call them guardian angels, and everybody's heard of the witch's familiar. What I think is so fascinating, I've just taken a great dive into Philip Pullman's work. He writes for teenagers, but I, anybody can read his stuff. His Dark Materials, popularized by the movie The Golden Compass, every human has their, they call them demons,
Mm-hmm.
animal in form. Important to go, I'm going to just circle around this as we chit chat for a minute. This idea of demon has been a word that's been demonized by dominant spiritual practices. We'll call those religions, mostly the religions of the book. The word comes from the Greek word daimon, which actually means guardian angel, assistant, advisor.
Oh, wow.
So people in
Mm.
Greece were known to have these assistant beings. I think for them they were probably in human form. However, they were helping spirits, not always helping in the best way. It was recognized they could kind of work both sides of the street, but they were definitely mediators between humans and the gods. When we get to shamanic practice, what we find is that the power animal, or these animal helping spirits, are mediators of power between the shaman and the universe. It's almost as if it's
Mm.
recognized that the universe has such, power that in order for the shaman to accommodate it, it has to go through the transformer of the power animal.
Mm.
That's some of the understanding that people seem to have presently about the role.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. Are there also our protectors when we journey through the different, worlds and
Right, right. So the idea too is that they become companions.
Hmm.
Companions, as you say, we journey through the different realms, the lower world, the upper world, and the middle world.
Hmm.
Why animals? Why do the spirits come to us in the form of animals? And I'll just put this out there. It has been suggested that humans have a close relationship with animals
Hmm.
because we share so many characteristics, particularly with the mammals. We're mammals, we're animals, that we have a rapport with them, a natural rapport. You go back to the wolf being the domesticated animal. Back, they suggest it in China about 10 to 15,000 years ago when the wolf became the ancestor to the dog. So we have this kind of rapport with animals. And for our survival, when we think of ourselves before we were modern people living with lights and computers and
Hmm.
all of this, as as people living without the fancy accoutrement that we have now, we had to observe nature. We had to become
Right.
intimately aware, and it was through the intimacy of that, I believe, that the spirits came to present themselves to us in the vocabulary of that experience. Because that's what the shaman has. When the shaman does any journeying, the communication that comes to him or her
Hmm.
is in the vocabulary of their experience. The spirits want you to know them, the spirits want you to understand them. So they can only do it in each person's vocabulary, which makes it a fascinating exploration because what one thing means to you might not mean the same thing to me. And
Right.
when I talk about this, I actually go into some of this in my book, Terra Signs, because
Oh,
when
good.
we talk about that vocabulary of experience, I could mention the word mountain to you. Now, to me, a mountain is grandeur. It's elevating. It's just exciting. It's invigorating. Until I think about maybe walking up it, and I'm thinking, ah, stressful. I'm losing air. Some people, that's all they'd think about. But for me, the overwhelming meaning of mountain is uplifting. For others,
Right.
it's aching legs. It's hard to breathe. It's exertion.
Right.
So, so what about you and your mountain?
So, what can I ask you a
Sure.
question about the power animals? A lot of people ask me this because I tend to have many power animals in my little, private zoo in the upper world. And so I do have two main ones that are always constantly with me, especially one when I journey shamanically. Are these power animals, the fact that you meet them when you first learn to journey shamanically, are they have they been with you as your protectors most of your life? Do they know you? Because that's how it feels to me.
Right.
That especially one of them is my blood.
Right.
He is so a lot of people ask me this, is this helper, is this helping spirit in the form of an animal? What does he provide for me? What medicine does he provide?
Right.
And so that is such an interesting thing to define for the watchers, the people that are listening to us,
Sure.
because a lot of people right now are interested in shamanism,
Right.
and they hear this word, a power
Right.
animal retrieval,
Hmm.
a power animal, and they don't really know what it means. So could you explain, and then I'll read the channeled
Oh,
information that
sure.
I got from my helping spirits that is in my book
Sure.
about who these power animals are. But let me start with you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and there were like 5 questions in that, and I'll try to hit each and every one of them
Oh, okay.
if I can remember how that went. It's so interesting because when we have inquiring minds, it's like there are so many little facets that we can riff on.
Right.
Well, the first one is about, I think about everybody having a power animal, the idea of, and how many should you have? So we'll start with the idea that, um, and I'm looking back at various traditions now. So a little precursor to this conversation is that every tradition is going to have an entirely different view of the power animal and the helping spirits.
Hmm.
Some people will suggest, and I think this is in some Native American groups, and I say Native American groups because not all of them are the same. So to say, oh, it's a Native American practice, is to gloss over the fact that what the Lakota did, it may be very different from what the Cherokee did, what the Hopi do. I mean, all of those things. You can't clump them together, just as you can't clump the Saka and the Yakagur and the Kwakiutl and the other people from, and I'm thinking about Siberia right now. I'm thinking of the Chukchi. That's the name. You can't clump them all together because they have different practices.
Hmm.
So, however, in some Native American groups, it is conjectured, and it is their belief system, it's part of their cosmology, that when a child is born, a child has some kind of helping spirit that helps that child to a point when they become initiated and they get an adult helping spirit. So there's a sense that
Interesting.
there is a helping spirit. There may be a a changing of the guards at some point, puberty initiation. There are the ideas of totems. And when I'd mentioned earlier that sometimes assistant totem is the word used for a guardian animal spirit, this is because when we talk totems, typically, and I'm going to the literature and how it's used there, these are group spirits. So when you see a totem pole, you are looking at a stack of representations of animal spirit helpers, typically, who are part of a particular clan. So the whole clan can rely upon this stack of helping spirits. And our phrase that, oh, he's low man on the totem pole, thinking that that's, he's less than dirt, is completely the opposite of what's true. The lowest being represented on the totem pole is the most powerful one and is the one that's typically carved the most exquisitely because that's eye level. And so the artist puts the most prominent
Hmm.
at the base. So, having said all that, when it comes to individual animal helping spirits, as we've learned through people who are practicing core shamanism and have explored this for themselves, they can have any of a number
Hmm.
of helping spirits. How they form their protective barriers, how they employ the protocols of the shaman can be as varied as the people practicing.
Hmm.
Now, you will find that in particular cultures, and I'm trying to remember if it's Turkic or Uralic, you may have a number of different power animals that become associated with the body in different ways. So you may have like a lower body power animal, a
Okay.
central torso body power animal, a head power animal. But that's part of the recognition that the shaman has of the three
Hmm.
part worlds. The upper is the head,
Hmm.
the middle is the torso, the
Hmm.
lower, generally from the genitals down to the ground, is the lower world. And so you can have animal helpers that come in each of
Wow.
these places. So it can, yeah, and how you acquire them and how you release them, what happens.
That is an important question. So
Oh,
how do you acquire them?
mostly what happens when a shaman acquires one, especially in our Western culture today, it's
Hmm.
not necessarily that you have an acquisition that happens, it is a recognition.
Okay.
You suddenly somehow recognize that you have this power association. And I'm going to back that down even further because when we talk about power, we're talking about energy, intelligence, love, ethics. Those are the three
Hmm.
components. So when we talk about energy, that doesn't even encompass the entirety of what we mean with power, because there's intelligence there. There's more juice to it than just energy. Energy, the ability to do work. Well, okay, I've got that, but what's the intelligence that guides that work? So
Right.
when we talk about power animals, and this is where the distinctions come in, is that the intelligence and the characteristics of the animals can be so nuanced that there are aspects of them that can be called into play if there's a necessity.
Right. So,
So,
but not necessarily, right? Because, there's books about power animals
sure,
that people read when you tell them, oh, you have a giraffe. And for me, I never look in a book.
right,
I try to really stay focused in the medicine that I feel,
precisely,
right?
precisely.
That power animal is giving to myself or to another person. So I think that is important because shamanism is so personal.
Right. And I'm so glad you mentioned that because it is based on personal relationships you build with the helping spirits. And I could no more jump in and have a relationship with your power animals than you could with mine
Right.
because these are personal. These are driven by who we are and how we relate to the entity, to
Yes.
the being. And I'm so glad you
So
said
are
that.
we relating? Sorry to interrupt
Go
you,
ahead.
but I think it's important for people to understand. Are we relating to one specific animal of a race, let's say a lion? Are we when we receive a power animal or we merge with our power animal or we receive, the recognition that a lion, let's say, is your power animal, are we receiving one animal or are we receiving the spectrum of the medicine of lions? People always ask me this.
I know, and it is such a niggle because everybody and I think it speaks to our Western analytical mind. It's like we
Uh-huh.
want to pin it down. We want to have no mystery. We want to just give me the answer. Tell me the answer so I can fill it in on my paper and pass the test.
Right.
I mean that's
Which is the wrong attitude anyways, right?
exactly exactly because I have had experience when it's both and and so at some point I really felt that I had to surrender my need. There's some wonderful teachings out about embracing the mystery, and in embracing the mystery you actually have knowledge unfold for you.
Right. You learn.
Because if you want to nail it down and you say it's this, the next thing you come in touch with, it's not going to be that, and then you're going to be back
Yeah.
wondering, but that
Right.
and this, and then you begin to invalidate your feelings. What you said,
Absolutely.
basically, um, I think forms a great foundation. It is the feeling essence of the being with whom you're connected that defines your relationship and explains it for you. Now, I would say if somebody pressed me on the answer to that, I would say that it's both. Not only do you get the power, the flavor of power that comes with the species,
Hmm.
but as you begin to work with a relationship, it becomes an individual that you
Right.
begin to
He
recognize.
becomes yours. He becomes yours. For
Yes,
me, I become his as well. It's a two-way relationship.
absolutely. It
And
is.
one thing I want to say is that thank God somebody during the trainings told me about this long time ago, is that I use my power animal, my main power animal, so much all day long for everything. I'm always with him. He comes on walks with me. I mean, it is imaginary, the imagination. I see him, but I actually feel his presence.
Right.
So I need to help him sometimes, and I feed him. And it's such a beautiful relationship where in my journey in through my imagination, I bring him water. I bring him, my particular one would like big steak, big
Hmm.
raw steak.
Right.
and and I see how that relationship is nurturing to both. So
Hmm.
it goes, what I'm trying to say is that when we are lucky enough to know our power animals, to accept them with so much love, and in return to also favor them with our attention and love and dedication. That's what
Hmm.
I'm trying to say, because it's not a one way thing, it
No.
really is a relationship.
Hmm.
And in my particular life, I love him so much, my main power animal, that I treasure that relationship. It sounds so funny, but I do.
Right, you do.
And and that has helped me learn how to treat animals in in physical form in on our planet,
Hmm.
um, to that same level of love and that same level of consciousness and care.
Right.
So that is one of the medicines for me that my power animal brings me, is the teaching of nature, of animals, of all animals, of the birds, of, caring for our nature. So yes, there's so much that we could say. I really do want to read you what my helping spirits, the Council of AR, say about what is a power animal. I'm sure it's everything we've already talked, but worth a little read. What is a power animal? A power animal is simply an animal consciousness in spirit form that has enough power to guide and protect you in your journey through the many realms in the spirit world. This other reality called the spirit world has many avenues and location, and with the help of a power animal that knows and loves you and has been your companion since ancient times, you can travel safely through these beautiful realms. One should always be in the company of one's power animal during a shamanic journey. Power animals can also be great healers and are endowed with various specialties and powers. Not all power animals have the ability to heal, but some do. The same goes for spirits. Not all spirits have power. This is why we need to advise you, if you wish to embark on shamanic journeys, that you do so only with the prior counseling and help of an experienced seer or shaman, in order to make this experience safe and enjoyable. So I think that gives us also, a practical view on why do we have power animals, right? And their specialties.
Exactly, exactly. And that's something that is coming right out of the individual relationship,
Right.
because that's where you learn the specialties, the protocols that you as a practicing person can employ for help. And I like the point there about not all spirits having powers. Now, we're going to back that down from the idea of animal helping spirits, um, and just very briefly make note, we'll do that, that when we're journeying into the upper world and the lower world, typically, you're finding spirits there that are more compassionate, perhaps, um, with humans and their endeavors. The middle world, which is the world in which we live, also has spirits in it, many who have their own agendas that do not support human life, do not support what is good for an individual human. So when we're traveling and doing our work in the middle world, having the help of a compassionate, animal helping spirit allows us to exercise discernment
Mm,
so that when we
mm,
come in contact with a spirit being, a spirit person perhaps, who um, died suddenly and is distressed and all they want to do is bother someone, that spirit being, you can identify that, step away from that, or if you have training, help in that situation. But what you're recognizing is they do not have the power of energy, intelligence, love, and ethics in operation. So your
mhm.
encounter with them is not one that should be willy nilly. You need to exercise discernment.
Right.
That makes sense?
Such an important point. It's really important. I always explain that to people, you know, we're not working with spirits in the middle world when we are working as shamanic practitioners. Mainly we are working with these amazing spirits of love and compassion and power,
Mm-hmm.
because we know our own little group, right? It's not
Right.
that one day you have a new one and another day
No,
you create a knowing, a bond of who
who to
is good,
trust.
who to trust exactly.
Absolutely. Now, this is
And
not to say, if I
yes,
can just jump in for a second, that
hmm,
this is not to say that all middle world spirits are not to be trusted, because some shamans work very closely with middle world spirits, and they're the
okay,
plant spirits. They're the mineral
yes,
spirits.
yes,
These are beings that occupy this space as well. We have our wonderful cohabitants, and if you ever come from the British Isles, you know that that's steeped in the good neighbors. Now, the good neighbors have good
hmm,
days and bad days, being the fairy people of those races.
hmm,
And engaging with them takes, again, a level of discernment. So,
right.
we're in the middle world, we're juggling things.
That is why we need to explain that shamanism, as beautiful and powerful as it is, it needs training.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it needs like a little bit of a ground training. I think
Right.
you and Dana, your husband, have been such an amazing, you know, you have a school of shamanism,
Right.
basically. Dana is a faculty member of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, but you also provide a specific training that I
Right.
have attended and that I love. And the more you train, the more training is very important for me, because training gives me direction,
Mm-hmm.
and training helps me have understand the purpose that I
Right.
always, you know, it's part of having that direction. um Most of the people that I encounter that are attracted to shamanism do not realize how much having proper training as your basic foundation, how much is it is helpful and
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I think so. I think what I how I appreciate the work of the foundation is that it provides the scaffolding. You
Yes.
get concepts, you get them rooted in certain practices, and once you have that, and because the concepts bring with you them experiences where the feeling piece comes in, where you know, because it's the shaman knows. It's not like, well, I believe. No, 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 no. You know because you've had an experience, a direct revelational experience
Right.
that informs you. So you have the informed experience and the scaffolding upon which to hang it. So, I mean, it's like anything. If you walked into a metal shop and they started talking to you about smelting and all sorts of things, you would be clueless. You don't have the vocabulary. But you learn the vocabulary
Mm,
and then are able to extrapolate it, and then you're helping spirits take over with your education.
right.
But at least you have a framework
That's
upon which to build. And
absolutely. And to learn about ethics,
right.
how to, that is such an important thing to explain to people, you know. Could you explain ethics, the
Well,
importance of ethics in shamanism?
Well, just briefly, I mean, it's interesting because we have a very different view of ethics in our culture than, say, the Hivaro do, or some of the shamanic practitioners in indigenous societies, which use middle world spirits to attack each other. There is a dark side of shamanism. This is not an ideal um, spiritual practice in terms of how it's expressed in many places in the world. Yet, when we look at this and take it on as part of some of our ancestral heritage, because it comes from many places in the world where it's been practiced, there has been an emphasis in most cases on healing and community work. You do the work to benefit your community. It's not to do these, this shadow
Right.
work, which we have to embrace our shadows as well. So there's that there. But in our Western culture, it is very clear that when we use these techniques, we use them only with the permission of someone who's asked us for help. So
Right.
I love the story. Permission is the whole thing. Now, there's a vow that I had to take when I took my Buryat initiation, is that if two people come to me at the same time, one is rich and one is poor, my vow is to help the poor one first. That's just a standard thing from the Buryat people. And I think what that's about is to recognize that this work, dealing with people, is not about self aggrandizement. It is not
Right.
about building yourself up and saying, I'm a shaman. Um, Nobody in their right mind is going to say that, because with that comes a whole host of responsibilities and obligations.
And
And
I wouldn't want to offend my helping spirits by they have the power, right? I
right,
am
it's
just
them.
their
It
little vessel that can have the hands. Or I would never feel comfortable. Even feeling that somebody is calling you a shaman is disturbing to me.
it is. It's like, hey, I'm just here to help you. I'm just
Yes,
here to help. And if I
I'm
can
just
do it,
practicing
yeah,
shamanism.
I'm using this body of techniques and my relationships to ask my helping spirits to help you. I'm just here asking the question. I'm necessary because I have the relationships, but it's not me doing anything other than asking for the help and just facilitating it.
So important.
Yeah.
And the permission to not work behind the back of somebody,
Oh, no, no.
even with the best intentions. A mother coming
Right.
to say, to beg you, oh, please, do something for my daughter or my son, they need you. And I always say, have them call me.
Right. Right. Because
They're adults, have them ask, have them call me. I'll work with them directly, but
you
not
have
through
to.
a mother, not through a
No,
father.
no. I love it because when you start attaching this to other professions, you don't see somebody who cuts hair or does hair work walking through the local grocery store, coming up to people with her scissors saying, here, let me fix your bangs for you. Here, let me touch up your roots. You don't have people do that.
No.
No. People, they say, oh, you know what? If you want a haircut, come see me.
Right.
The decision is up to the person. It's not
Right.
who may need the assistance. They
So let's explain why, because this is so important. And I would like to explain something, then you'll tell me if I'm correct or not. For me, we each come to do an incarnation with a contract, a soul contract. That's how I see life. And my contract involves painful experiences as well as joyful ones, because in the painful ones, I learn, I expand, I evolve, right? So I need to have them as well. It cannot be a vegetable, in utopian land. It doesn't work for some reason. So if I were to work behind the back of somebody that hasn't asked for help and healing, I would consider it that I am barging into their contract without their permission.
Mhm.
And maybe, let's say, if my helping spirits, they would never do that, but let's say, just as a story, if that person had a cancer or a tumor or a headache or whatever, and that ailment was removed through the work without the permission, it would be obstructing for the contract that that person made with their own soul to come into an incarnation to work out something. So it doesn't make sense anyways. Anyways you look at it, does
Right.
not make sense. It
Right.
is barging into somebody's personal, contract and personal discernment of what they want to have in their lives. Maybe they want to stay miserable. Who are you to come and have a judgment that they have to be filled with joy and happiness?
Exactly.
Everything's a learning.
It is. It is a learning, and I think if we and, and this gets involved with other spiritual entities too. When we talk about possession, anything that derails someone from their specific life stream
Hmm.
is inappropriate. And
Right.
if you jump in and do something that affects the person's life stream at the spirit level, I would say, without their knowledge, without their permission, then you've abused power, and abused power is power lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also it brings you, you know, there's one thing that is so obvious when you talk badly about somebody, and of course we all have at some point have a judgment and badmouth somebody. If you notice at that moment the energy in your body, you feel it. You're
Yes.
saying the words and you're feeling this rusty, dark kind of feeling inside your body. And it's a good way to learn how to stop yourself. The minute you step out of line, or I can talk for myself, because my helping spirits are teaching me to walk on the straight path. And it's such a difficult, journey to try to do that. Obviously, we're human beings. But I've
Yeah.
noticed that because everything's energy, my body reacts to even words that are
Oh, absolutely.
coming out of my own mouth
Hmm.
that are not appropriate. And I feel it. So, it's such a great thing to have this body, because if you pay attention to every sensation in your body, you don't need to be told, you're stepping out of the line. You know it just by feeling.
That is so amazing. It's so well said that understanding our feelings and the instrument that we have in our body is so important. I think the power animals can help us do that because they can bring our attention to our body when we, for example, merge with them and we begin to learn about them because of the sensations flowing through our body. I think that is so critical. And
Mm.
to jump back to what you're saying about learning the discernment, it's again, it's that discerning piece that when you're speaking something that you know is not true or not accurate or inappropriate, and you get the signal, I don't like that. It's learning to read that energetic material that you are
Yeah.
experiencing and identifying it correctly. Because I know people who can spout that stuff, and there is an energetic surge that they get from that. It's
Wow.
identified as perhaps, whoa, I'm empowered. But the flavor of it, if they were to step back and say, okay, now how does that feel differently from when you wish someone at a wedding, oh, I hope you have a blessed life? Compare the two feelings. And when you compare the two feelings, one might have that sense of power of some sort, but it's
Right.
lacking the integrity, it's lacking the ethics, and it can leave a bad taste in your mouth. But initially, it might feel good. We always talk about, boy, if I'd had that comeback 10 seconds ago, when you're having an argument, um, But then you realize, had I said that, it would have been like fouling the air.
Right.
But we don't always have that accurate discernment.
But we're here to learn, because
Exactly.
that's why we have these amazing life experiences, good, bad, and everything in between, is to always ask yourself, what am I learning from this situation?
Brilliant
Instead of
question.
jumping,
Hmm.
instead of jumping into thinking I know it all. Um, when I was a few years ago, I was diagnosed with a certain type of cancer. And I did that. And I went through, hard time, of course, but I looked at myself in the mirror one day and deep gazed into my eyes, and I said, what am I learning through this difficult situation?
Right.
I came up with so many amazing positive things that it changed the entire perspective of the diagnosis. I mean, it was endless. What am I learning through this difficult situation? What am I learning? What is my soul learning? Oh, I'm still learning about strength and my own love for my own body. I mean, it was endless. It changes everything when you ask,
Right.
when you ask the question, what am I learning from this situation? And I love my relationship with my power animal because I treat him like that. I see him in journeys and I
Right.
say, let's do it. Teach me. What am I learning here? Tell me. I mean, he's so much wiser and obviously um, kinder than me. And in every way that, he will show me, because I love shamanism is very symbolic, right?
Right. The
So
vocabulary is all
is
symbolic in your journeys,
right.
everything. Right.
So
You have to think about it.
yeah, it's amazing. You ask
Yeah.
a question and they bring you, a rotten flower or something. Or it could be anything. Could be a white rose, a rotten flower, a Scooby Doo, magazine. It could be just about anything. And they always see the broad picture, not only my power animal, but my helping spirits. I
Mhm.
love communicating with them because they have such a wide vision. And I
Right.
find my vision being so small and pathetic in a way, because it's just so raw. I can't, because I'm in a human form.
Right. It's just so human.
It's just so human. It's
Right.
just so like limited. So that's why we need to embrace, shamanism. It has so much to offer.
You're right. And I think that one of the things that's the biggest takeaway from engaging in shamanism and discovering, uncovering, recognizing that you have all this help available
Hmm.
is understanding that even though we are encapsulated in this physical body,
Hmm.
we are not alone. We're not
Yes.
alone. I have companions, and they're there with help. It's remembering, always remembering to take the time to step away from whatever circumstance, to settle,
Yeah.
and to say, I need help, and recognize that there's help available.
There's
I think
so
that's
much
one of
help available
the, right.
in everything we do, you know. And so, Shayna, when is your next basic class that people can take for the first basic class for learning
Well, I'd love to give you a
shamanism?
date, but I don't have it in front of me. But people can look at our website, www.shamantracks, SHAMANTRACKS.com. So on the
Perfect.
website, there will be all sorts of listings. The things that we are passionate about, that we are doing our own thing as part of our own shaman tracks. We talk about the animal powers of Central Asia. We talk about reindeer herders. It helps us to not only get in touch with the people who populate areas very different from ours, but we begin to develop intimacy and have wonderful explorations of the powers of these animals in these very remote regions. I mean, like what,
Beautiful.
they come to us. I mean, we have them in our culture. We have reindeer at Christmas time. What little girl do you know, and some of the little guys too,
Hmm.
who don't love horses and ponies? I mean, our toys,
Yes.
horses, rocking horses, teddy bears,
Bears, of
all of
course.
these. And I didn't mean to get
They
sexist.
are our first friends,
They
right?
absolutely are our first friends.
Most of us had a teddy bear of some kind, they're our first friends that we sleep with, that we cuddle with. There's a lot of magic in our lives. I'm
Right.
always
Lovely.
amazed how things work out.
Hmm.
You don't think about it, but your first real friend that you were inseparable was a teddy bear.
Right. And your
And then
first
you
toy
figure
was a
out
rattle.
yeah,
Think about your
exactly.
rattle.
It's
And so
crazy.
here I've got a rattle and a bear. I'm good to go for my whole life. That's all I need.
Yes, that is so beautiful. Look
Yeah.
at all the magic when we look backwards, everything that we have been hinted at during our entire life. Look at this, and now we can see the big picture and see how protected we've been.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Thank you, Shana, for all of this. You are
Thank
just
you.
such a library of information. We know you. We could talk for hours and
We
hours
could.
and hours. We have to keep it
And we've
short, but
done that. But we'll have another conversation, and folks can join us
and
once
yes, and
again.
if you have questions, people ask questions so we can, answer them. We'd
Right.
love
Look
to
down
do that.
below. You'll find our email addresses and websites.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shana. It is snowing here in Switzerland.
Lovely.
You have beautiful light
I
coming
have the
through the
sun
window.
flowing in. It's been just in the side of my face the
Wow.
whole time, but it's lovely. We've had such
It's
rainy
been
days. I'm so grateful for the sun.
for the sun, of
Hmm.
course. And there's a beautiful class that I still need to take with you, a training about the central sun, right? I hope
Yes. It's
I
called
hope
"Do
you're
You
good.
Believe in the Power of the Sun?" or "Do You Believe in the Power of the Sun?" That's the title of the class. So
And
coming
do you
soon.
know offhand coming soon, right? In
I think that's in
January?
January. Yep. So
Oh, how exciting. I will for sure be there. Thank you
oh,
a
thank
million
you,
times.
and
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank your helping spirits for that beautiful reading. That was wonderful and so definitive from your book. What's the
Yes,
title
from
again?
my
I
book.
always Crystal Clear Joy. There.
Yes, my book is on Amazon for everybody. It
Brilliant.
has so much inspiration, and I was just a little secretary, a little scribe. It is not really my book, it is their book, the Council of AR, who are my own helping spirits. They have called themselves like that. And I'm a very happy scribe.
It is. It is. It's good work. It's good work if you can get it. All right. So
Thank you,
till next
thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.